Hi and welcome to Ryvis Rambles, where I talk about whatever the f I want. And in today's video, I want to talk about the media I've consumed in the past 4 months. Now, before we get into it, I want to give a small explanation of the meaning of my star ratings. The 5-star rating means that I loved it and I will definitely revisit it. And I have to keep saying revisit because there's also media included which I read or play. It's not just watching movies, for example. 4 stars means I liked it and I might revisit it. 3 stars means I enjoyed it, but I'm not going to revisit it. 2 stars means I didn't feel anything or I just feel indifferent about it. 1 star means I get why people might like it, but it wasn't for me. 0 stars means I hated it. Absolute waste of my time. And just a small disclaimer, all of this just reflects my own feelings. It's not universal. If you have a different opinion, that's fine, but it will never be mine. So a low star rating for me doesn't necessarily mean that it's shit. It just means it wasn't for me. To each their own, okay? The categories I'm talking about are movies, shows, including dramas, anime, manga, and books. I usually also include games, but I didn't play anything in the last 4 months. Sadly. First, movies. And I'm going over them in the chronological order I watched them. I watched Nope, Kaibutsu, also known as Monster, Best Wishes to All, Paper Towns, Better Days, The Hate You Give, Premiere, Like Father Like Son, Deep Sea, The Haikyuu Dumpster Battle Movie, Hidden Blade, Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, Paprika, Deadpool and Wolverine, All of Us Strangers, The Creation of the Gods, May December, Midsummer, RRR or Triple R, and lastly Schindler's List. I've watched all of these for the first time except for Premiere. Nope is about a man and his sister discovering something sinister in the skies above their horse ranch. I love the movie. It kind of subverts expectations in a good way. In fact, I liked it so much that I am going to make a video about it. 5 stars. Next one is Kaibutsu, also known as Monster. It's the newest Koreeda movie. It's about a single mother who demands answers from her son's teacher when her son begins acting strangely. Kaibutsu also included a plot twist. I don't know if it's an actual plot twist. I just didn't see it coming because I was expecting something else. I remember that at the beginning of the movie I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it, but the more the story progressed, the more it won over my heart, so to speak. I also liked it a lot. Also going to make a video about it. 4 stars. Best Wishes to All is about a young woman who visits her grandparents, and while she's there she discovers a dark secret about them and potentially herself. It's supposed to be a horror movie. I would agree in a sense that it's a surreal, grotesque and psychological horror. It's not too spooky or too splattery, but there is blood and other body liquids. And without getting too spoilery, I also like the whole idea of fortune and misfortune in this movie. It was very mindfucky, but it didn't really blow me away, so 3 stars. Paper Towns. After an all-night adventure, Quentin's lifelong crush Margaret disappears, leaving behind clues that Quentin and his friends follow on the journey of a lifetime. The movie was okay. I liked the ending the most because I think the main theme of this movie is the whole idea of someone versus the reality. It was a nice watch, but I didn't feel much, so 2 stars. Better Days is about a bullied teenage girl who forms an unlikely friendship with a small-time criminal who protects her from her assailants. It's about bullying and its consequences. I would categorize it mainly as a drama with a bit of crime. However, the story isn't quite rewarding, so 2 stars. The Hate You Give. The movie is about Star, who witnesses the fatal shooting of her childhood best friend at the hands of a police officer. Now facing pressures from all sides of the community, Star must find her voice and stand up for what's right. It's a powerful movie with an important message, but the people who should see it probably never will. And even if they did, they probably lack the self-reflection to realize that they're part of the problem. 4 stars. Next up is Premiere, one of my all-time favorite anime movies. I've already watched it once, I think about 4 years ago, and I love it so much that I wanted to make a video about it, so I rewatched it and I will make a video about it. It's about a futuristic firefighting mecha service which was created to protect the world against fire-wielding mutants. And if that sounds like the kind of crazy you like, go watch it. It's amazing. 5 stars. Like Father Like Son is another Koreeda movie. It's about a married couple who learn that their biological son has been switched at birth and are now faced with the difficult decision to either choose their true son or keep the son they raised as their own. Personally, I don't care about blood. I would keep the son I raised. It obviously depends on the situation. Taking the movie situation specifically, I'd keep the child I've already put so much time and energy into. Unfortunately, I don't really like the dad, who's also kind of is the protagonist, and this movie is going to be the first Koreeda movie I'm not making a video about. 3 stars. Deep Sea is about a girl that is swept into the sea during a family cruise. Under the waves, she stumbles upon a mysterious restaurant where she meets the scheming head chef, and they join forces to save the restaurant and reunite Shenshu, the girl, with her mother. To me, the movie had quite the Ghibli vibes. It felt like a mix of Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away. It's incredibly pretty to look at. The animation is insane. Like, it feels like each strand of hair is moving individually. While watching it, I was just thinking about how much work this had to have been. The only thing I'd criticize is that it didn't feel like it had a plot until the very end. But once the ending is revealed, it all makes sense, and it hit me very hard because it was suddenly very relatable. First, I thought the main character was very passive and shallow, but once the ending was revealed, even her shallow and passive character makes sense. Which once again proved to me how important it is to finish things. Despite its colorful visuals, the movie is really dark and gave me emotional whiplash. 4 stars. The Dumpster Battle Haikyuu movie is about the match between Karasuno and Nekoma, and it's called Dumpster Battle because it's basically crows against cats, and they usually fight in dumpsters, I guess. And even though it's just 90 minutes about one match, it was so intense. I was rooting for both sides. I mean, of course Karasuno are going to win because they're the protagonist team, or will they? Guess you gotta watch it if you want to find out. What I also love about this movie is that it got all my favorites in it. If anyone cares, there are Tendo, Tsuki, Kenma, and Kageyama. 4 stars. Hellblade follows the story of underground workers who risked their lives to send intelligence and defend the motherland, set after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor when the Wang Jingwei regime declared war on Britain and the US. Some history stuff, never heard of it, still watched it. I was missing a lot of context, so I didn't understand most of it. I think the background knowledge was needed since it's not explained. It might be the shit for history nerds, and I have to say it triggered my curiosity in the sense that it made me want to research it, which I haven't done yet. But the fun thing is, if you have no idea what's going on, the ending is a plot twist. It was a plot twist to me. My mind was blown. What I did like about the movie was it had pretty images. 2 stars. Perfect Blue is about a young Japanese singer who is encouraged by her agent to quit singing and pursue an acting career, beginning with a role in a murder mystery TV show. What I liked about this movie, it really fucks with your mind, and usually the protagonist would be the audience surrogate, which means the more the plot progresses, the more we learn. However, in this movie, the protagonist gets more confused as the plot progresses, and so do we. Because much like Mima, the main protagonist, at the end you don't know what's real anymore. I think it was a really good execution. 4 stars. Millennium Actress. It's about a TV interviewer and his cameraman who meet a former actress to make a documentary about her and travel through her memories and career. The movie very much feels like a stage play. There are lots of flashbacks to the past with the interviewer and his cameraman as spectators. And during those flashbacks, the interviewer is way more involved than a cameraman because he's also a huge fan of the actress. I wouldn't say the movie is spectacular, but it was quite funny. 3 stars. Paprika. When a machine that allows therapists to enter their patients' dreams is stolen, all hell breaks loose. Only a young female therapist, Paprika, can stop it. The story is mindfuck alright, but fun to watch, because its absurdity made me laugh a few times. What I also really like is that some of the sentences set in the movie are also very dreamlike, which means they're not very cohesive, but they're treated as if it's the most normal thing any person would say. It was quite enjoyable, but it had a tiny bit of fat phobia, so 3 stars. Next one is Deadpool and Wolverine, and I don't think I have to say much about the plot. It's about Deadpool and Wolverine who have to work together to save the world from an existential threat or something. It's an awesome movie. It was absolutely funny with a few emotional moments sprinkled on top of it. Especially Deadpool's sentiment of wanting to matter is something I could deeply relate to. I think we all want to matter. Personally, I don't think we matter at all because this planet will be gone one day and no one and no thing will remember us. It's not that I'm searching for a purpose, but yet I still want to create and share my ideas with others. This movie made me realize once again that I don't just want to talk about my stories, I want to make them reality. I want to share my ideas with others, and I want them to be as good as this movie. 5 stars. All of Us Strangers is a movie about a screenwriter who occasionally visits his parents and starts a relationship with a new mysterious neighbor. It's a very slow and calm movie with a heavy topic. It's so sad, in fact, that I cannot recommend you watching it if you're already feeling down. I felt sorry for Adam during the whole movie, and all the references I could make to this movie would be spoilers, so sorry. 4 stars. Next is The Creation of Gods, a magnificent Eastern high fantasy epic that recreates the prolonged mythical wars between humans, mortals, and monsters, which happened more than 3,000 years ago. The movie is amazing as it sounds. This movie is apparently the first part of 3. The movie contains lots of fathers and sons, and it was a bit hard to keep track of in the beginning, but it's not that much of a problem at the end. And even though it's super long, it never gets boring, and I'm so looking forward to the next parts. 4 stars. May December. 20 years after their notorious tabloid romance gripped the nation, a married couple buckles under the pressure when an actress arrives to do research for a film about their past. The movie very much feels like a thriller. Some might call it a forbidden love story, I'd call it illegal, but I also like how the story handled it by not handling it at all. They talk about how they don't talk about it, and it's portrayed as problematic, which it is. Random fact, but the music sometimes reminded me of Kingdom Hearts. 3 stars. Midsummer. A couple travels to Northern Europe to visit a rural hometown's fabled Swedish Midsummer Festival. However, their visit changes their lives forever. And honestly, I was so scared of watching this movie, but it wasn't as scary as I feared. It's still quite the experience, and it has a really unsettling atmosphere. It's kind of slow, but you just gotta go with the flow. But all in all, it's quite a solid movie. 3 stars. Next up is RRR or Triple R or Rise, Roar and Revolt.
I got so excited that I forgot to summarize the plot, so voiceover time. It's about a fearless revolutionary and an officer in the British force who decide to join forces and chart out a path of freedom against the despotic rulers.
I wanted to watch this movie for such a long time, and I finally had the time to do it. The beginning was a bit confusing because we have just way too many characters, but once the 2 main protagonists are established, the confusion dissolves. What I liked about this movie was the over-the-top action, the enemies to lovers, friends trope, and that the elements fire and water are implemented throughout the movie. I can absolutely recommend this movie, but I understand that it's quite the time commitment, and I wanted to mention 2 or 3 things as a warning or to set expectations. First of all, there's lots of over-explanation. Second of all, it's overly heroic. And thirdly, you need a huge suspension of disbelief. I think this screenshot sums it up perfectly. 4 stars. In the last movie, Schindler's List. Another long movie. It's about Oskar Schindler, a successful and narcissistic German businessman who slowly starts worrying about the safety of his Jewish workforce after witnessing their persecution in Poland during World War II. To me, movies about the Second World War are always devastating, no matter how many times I watch this part of history. I also think it's an important topic, now more than ever. But it felt a bit too long, and the black and white made it a bit hard for me to distinguish some of the characters. 3 stars. Next up, shows. I watched Dead Boy Detectives, Baby Reindeer, Glee Season 4-6, all of Sweet Tooth, Botkin Season 1, the Geek Girl miniseries, rewatched Untamed, finished Downton Abbey, the documentary Don't Fuck With Cats, The Birth of the Drama King, Eric, Trinket Season 2, Tokyo Vice, Worst Roommate Ever, The Man with 1,000 Kids, Supercell, the entirety of Skins, Umbrella Academy Season 4, and The Boys Season 4. First off, Dead Boy Detectives. It's about 2 teenage ghosts who work alongside a clairvoyant to solve mysteries for their supernatural clientele until a powerful witch complicates their plans. I love this show. I'm going to make a video about it. The video will be released in October because it's the spooky month. 5 stars. Baby Reindeer. When a struggling comedian shows an act of kindness to a vulnerable woman, it sparks a suffocating obsession which threatens to wreck both their lives. Baby Reindeer is an amazing show, and it was really hard to watch. I didn't know it was based on a true story because it only gets mentioned once very briefly at the beginning, I think, and I kind of missed that. But while I was watching the show, I already had a vague feeling that it had to be based on a true story, and the confession of the protagonist's dad confirmed my suspicion because it was just too specific. I actually really like the whole package, but the topic is just too heavy for me to make a video about it. 5 stars. Glee Season 4-6. I don't think I have to really explain what it's about, but it's about high schoolers in a choir club singing and dancing and trying to win competitions. I have to say, I didn't like season 4 and 5. Ever since the seniors of the main cast have graduated, it just didn't feel like Glee anymore. We have 2 new generations. Season 4 and 1 have a new generation and season 6 has a new generation. And to be honest, the newest, or well, the last generation was my favorite generation, kind of, even though the last 2 seasons were the worst. I mainly watched it because I liked the musical acts, even though they also got worse with each season. I also realized that Santana is my favorite, closely followed by Blaine. Do with that information what you want. 2 stars. Sweet Tooth. A boy who is half human and half deer survives in a post-apocalyptic world with other hybrids and a gruff protector. I don't know why, but I kept mixing up Baby Reindeer with Sweet Tooth. I think it's mainly because Sweet Tooth, the protagonist, Gus, is half reindeer. Whatever. I watched seasons 1, 2, 3. I like that it's playing in a post-apocalyptic world where most of humanity is wiped out by a virus, and that we have these animal-human hybrids who are hated by some of the humans because they're apparently are the reason for the virus. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Gotta watch the show. It's brutal, but not too gory or bloody. And all in all, it's kind of wholesome. I don't really have a favorite character, but I have to say that Bear is so mature and serene for her age. That is just something that stood out to me. 3 stars. Bodkin is about a group of podcasters who set out to investigate the mysterious disappearance of 3 strangers in an idyllic Irish town. But when they start to pull the strings, they find a story much bigger and stranger than they could have ever imagined. And I have to agree, it really is strange, but in a good way. Basically, it's a true crime podcast turned into a real detective story. I have to say, it took me a moment to get invested, but at the end, it was a really nice and fun watch. I liked the dry humor. I enjoyed it, but I'm not gonna watch it again. 3 stars. Geek Girl. Awkward teen Harriet has always wanted to fit in until she gets scouted by a top model agent and learns that some people are meant to always stand out. This show has very old school stereotypes, or archetypes, if you will. What stood out to me is that Harriet apparently is autistic. They never actually mention it. They just allude to it, but for some reason the dad tries to deny it. I don't know, it all felt a bit weird. All in all, it's a quirky but forgettable show. And you need a huge suspension of disbelief for the plot. 3 stars. Then I rewatched The Untamed. In a magical world of interclan rivalry, 2 soulmates face treacherous schemes and uncover a dark mystery linked to a tragic event in the past. But I also have to read the Google summary because Lucian and good friend Lanwaji work to solve a series of murder mysteries. Good friend, yes indeed. The Untamed is my absolute all-time favorite show forever and ever. It's an absolute masterpiece. I will make a video about it in the future. 10 stars. Downton Abbey is a chronicle of the lives of the British aristocratic Crawley family and their servants in the early 20th century. I'm so glad we finally finished it. Apparently there are 2 more movies and a 3rd one coming out soon. I will also watch them, but I don't feel anything anymore. 2 stars. Don't Fuck with Cats. It's a documentary. It's a documentary about a group of online justice seekers who tracked down a guy who posted a video of himself killing kittens. There was no content or trigger warning, at least not that I know of, so just be aware that you will witness kittens being killed on screen. I don't know if they show all of it, because I couldn't watch. I didn't want to see it, but I could hear it, and it was gruesome. It was really gruesome. I don't think it's a documentary people have to watch, especially if you like cats and kittens. Maybe you shouldn't watch it. It's really upsetting. However, what I wanted to say is the guy who killed the kittens is an absolute psycho, and there's always this question during the documentary, like, why is he doing that? But the thing with psychopath is there is no why. They cannot be understood. And the thing is, if you show or tell them that you're upset, it only feeds them. If they see that you're upset, they're not going to stop, they're going to continue. 3 stars. The Birth of the Drama King. It's a comedy about two long-lost brothers who reunite as enemies in a pugilistic world. Oh my god. It's a comedy about two long-lost brothers who reunite as enemies in a pugilistic world when one infiltrates a supposedly Dark Lord sect as an undercover agent. And it's indeed funny. I will be making a video about it. I just wanted to mention that it's based on a BL novel, and I always read the novels that the dramas are based on because I'm curious of how the relationship was censored, and I have to say the drama is much better than a novel. 4 stars. The next one I watched was Eric. It's about the puppeteer Vincent who clings to his missing son's drawings of a blue monster puppet named Eric, convinced that if he can get Eric on TV, then his son will come home. At first I didn't want to watch it because I have an irrational vendetta against Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't know why, but that's how it is. But then I learned it's about a missing child, and after watching Don't Fuck with Cats, I was already in that depressed mindset, so I thought to myself, fuck it, let's watch it. And it was okay. It still gets 3 stars because I like the ending. It's been a while since I've watched something where the outcome wasn't predictable. Trinket Season 2. An unexpected friendship forms when 3 teenage girls meet in Shoplifters Anonymous. I feel like I've already watched the 2nd season because it felt very familiar. I didn't remember it, so I've watched it again. And it felt like I've watched something new. What I didn't realize during my first watch that it feels a bit rushed and that the dialogues are a bit stilted. But all in all, it's short and an easy watch, so 3 stars. Tokyo Vice. It's about an American journalist working for a publication in Tokyo who takes on one of the city's most powerful crime bosses. Because of course he does. I watched both seasons. I didn't like it at all. It gave me a bit of white savior complex. You know, it's like the white guy who dares what no Japanese person would. He takes down the Yakuza. Of course he does. I'm not interested in Yakuza stories in general. Call me old-fashioned, but I really don't think we should perpetuate Yakuza stories. Because, and I know you're not gonna believe this, but Yakuza bad. What I also didn't really buy was this whole good guy Yakuza narrative. If you're Yakuza and watching this, then first of all, thank you. And second of all, please don't come for me. But there are no good guy Yakuzas. Yakuza is bad. That's the whole point. They're corrupt. They're power hungry. If they're good people, they're just not Yakuza. That's how I see it. As I said before, Yakuza bad. So, I didn't like the Yakuza storyline. I didn't like the white guy trying to take out the crime boss because he can. I didn't like the dialogues because they kind of felt choppy. Like when you're playing a game and don't press A fast enough, the pauses just didn't feel natural. First time I was invested was the cliffhanger in season 2 episode 6, but that didn't last long. I also was a bit disappointed when we didn't see any dicks in the bathhouse, but if I remember correctly, we also don't see boobs during the scenes, so that's fair, I guess. I also didn't like that Jake, the American, was unwelcomed at his working place, and yet they kept cutting him so much slack. Like they had enough reasons to fire him, but they didn't. I also kind of wanted to know why he chose Japan out of all the countries, and it's never explained, and it doesn't have to be explained, but that's the only thing I wanted to know. Like, why did he choose Japan? I think they briefly talk about it, and the way I understood, he just wanted to get away from his family, but why Japan? Since this doesn't get answered, I was left unsatisfied. 1 star. Then I watched 2 more documentaries. The first one is Worst Roommate Ever, the 2nd season. It's about roommates with malevolent and sometimes violent intentions who turn the lives of their unsuspecting victims into real life nightmares. When I watched the first season, I went into this documentary expecting stories about messy roommates. I didn't expect violence and murder. It's an interesting watch. It's also quite one-sided because we only hear one side of the story. Still interesting, 3 stars. The Man with 1,000 Kids. It's about the story behind Jonathan Meyer, a Dutch sperm donor. It's about the story behind Jonathan Meyer, a Dutch sperm donor who was accused of fathering over 500 children and defrauding vulnerable families in the Netherlands and around the world. Again, wasn't what I expected. I don't know what I expected, but that wasn't it. It's an overall interesting case, but also super weird. What he did was a severe violation and absolutely not cool. He almost was the reason for human extinction, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. 3 stars. Supercell. When 5 ordinary South Londoners discover they have extraordinary powers, it's down to one man to bring them together to save the woman he loves. The beginning was really intriguing. The first episode dragged a bit, but unfortunately it never picks up the pace. I don't mind basic superpowers, which they kind of have. That's absolutely fine. I mean, it certainly had fun moments, and my favorite was the fast guy, who also uses his powers with no fear of consequences, but the overall story was a bit boring to me. I was also slightly disappointed because each episode has a name as their title, and I thought it would be focused on one character per episode or like have one POV per episode, but it wasn't like that. So 2 stars. Since I didn't get what I wanted from Supercell, it inspired me to watch the entirety of Skins again. Seasons 1, 2, 7. Yes, 7. It's about a group of British teens who are trying to grow up and find love and happiness despite questionable parenting and teachers who would rather be friends and lovers than authority figures. I've watched this when it aired like, I don't know, 15 years ago, and now that I've rewatched it, I still very much love it. In my opinion, it's a very good teenager show. Of course, it also has the nostalgia bonus from my perspective. What I love most about this show is that we have each episode from another person's perspective, which still ties into a cohesive and ongoing story. And since it's a group of friends, you always know what's happening in the other characters' lives as well. I also remember always looking forward to the next episode because I was so eager to know whose perspective it's going to be. I also like the different generations. I had no problem with the new cast, even though I have to say I remembered the first and the second gen better than the last one. I also cared the least about the last generation. I mean, I liked the characters and they had much potential, but they changed a lot from season 5 to season 6. Much of the things they did were suddenly very out of character. All in all, I think it aged well, except for a few things, for example the obvious male gaze, but I really like how character driven it is and that the characters have layers and depth. 5 stars. Then I watched Umbrella Academy season 4, which is also the final season. Reunited by their father's death, estranged siblings with extraordinary powers uncover shocking family secrets and a looming threat to humanity. I like Umbrella Academy. I liked the season as the final season. We don't talk about Bruno, no. It's as dark and gritty and fun as I remembered it. I feel like they, how do you say it? They tied up the threads. I think the ending makes sense. It feels complete. 4 stars. And finally, The Boys season 4. Not the final season. The Boys is about a group of vigilantes set out to take down corrupt superheroes who abuse their superpowers. And just like the Umbrella Academy, I like The Boys very much. I liked it from the first season. I feel like it was going steady. It never got worse. I'm watching it for the gore, for the violence, and I got what I signed up for, so I have no complaints. 4 stars. Now, anime. This time I watched more than last time. I finished Dungeon Meshi. I watched Goodnight World, Windbreaker, Kaiju number 8, Kimetsu no Yaiba season 4 and 5, Oshinoko season 1, and Tazogade Outfocus. Dungeon Meshi is about a group of adventurers who navigate a seemingly endless dungeon with the goal of resurrecting Laios' sister. However, they don't have money or provisions, so they have to eat monsters. Now that I've finished the season, I have to say my opinion, unfortunately, didn't change much. I still think it's kind of boring because the few tense moments we have far in between are quickly resolved. However, there are a few things I like about the show. First of all, Senshi's panty shots. Love them. And the race swap in episode 23, it's the funniest. But as I said, I still don't like it very much. 2 stars. Goodnight World is about 4 miserable members of a dysfunctional household who have no idea that they have formed a happy family unit in an immersive VR game with each other. After reading this premise, I just had to watch it. The anime is very mindfucky and not very predictable, but also dragging at some points. I don't regret watching it, and I did enjoy it, so 3 stars. Windbreaker is about Haruka Sakura, who wants nothing to do with weaklings and is only interested in the strongest of the strong. Starting at Huden High, a school known for student brawlers who protect their town, Haruka seeks to battle his way to the top. I love this anime. I think it's so much better than Tokyo Revengers. In fact, I love it so much that I'm going to make a video about it. 5 stars. Kaiju number 8 is about a man, Ibn Kafka, who's working a job removed from his childhood dreams and gets wrapped up in an unexpected situation. Becoming a kaiju, he aims once again to fulfill his lifelong dream. I went into this anime without expectations, and even those expectations have been surpassed. They've been surpassed so far that I'm gonna make a video about it. 4 stars. Next up, Kimetsu no Yaiba season 4 and 5. First of all, in general, Kimetsu no Yaiba is about a family who is attacked by demons and only 2 members survive. Tanjiro and his sister Nezuko, who's slowly turning into a demon. Tanjiro sets out to become a demon slayer to avenge his family and cure his sister. Season 4 is the Swordsmith Village arc, and season 5 is the Hashira training arc. I have to say, the first time I watched it, I had a hard time getting into it, and I don't know why. I also didn't remember why, so I gave it another chance. And I'm glad I did, because I actually like it. I also have to say, Muzan would be such a good villain. Or he is a good villain, but I just can't take him seriously because he looks so much like Michael Jackson. He just does. So far, I think season 4 is my favorite. The beginning of season 4 is insane. Like, just the animation. It's crazy. But I also like the creative ideas and the character designs. It has the perfect amount of action, gore, and insane battle animations, but that's what it's known for anyways. If you need confirmation, here it is. In fact, I have to say, I wish I could watch the whole anime on the big screen in a cinema, because it just feels like such a waste to watch it on a small screen. I'm kind of sad that the next arc is going to be 3 movies, because the production of movies always takes a bit longer, or until I can see it. I'll have to wait until all 3 have aired, because I want to watch it in one go, because I'll 100% forget what's happened in the movie before. Anyways, I'm giving it 4 stars because I would like to rewatch it, but I'll wait until the anime is complete, and provided I'll find the time. Next up, I watched Oshinoko. A doctor and his recently deceased patient are reborn as twins to a famous Japanese musical idol and navigate the highs and lows of the Japanese entertainment industry as they grow up together. And I have to say, the first episode is fucking feature length. I didn't know that, and I also didn't check, because when I watch anime, I expect the episodes to be 20 minutes. I have this inner clock which tells me the episode should be over, but once the 20 minutes were over, I already was like, that's weird. Maybe it's 40 minutes. Then 40 minutes passed, and I was like, is this fucking 90 minutes? And yes, it was. It was fucking 90 minutes. Also kind of funny that I didn't check, but I also didn't feel like I had to check. The reason I'm glad I didn't check it is because I would have never started it. If I'd seen that the first episode is 90 minutes, I wouldn't have watched it. So I'm glad I went into it blindly. So basically we have otakus reborn as their idol's kids with the memories of their past life, which sure is something. I have to say I'm not very invested, but the art and animation are really nice, especially the eyes. And the opening slaps, and the most interesting part of this anime is the whole Aqua searching for their dad. Everything else is a bit boring. I think the anime is trying to give us a glimpse behind the scenes of the entertainment industry. I can't tell how real it is, but I don't think it's that far from reality, but it still lost me in the middle. Especially the whole romance subplot outweirded me. It's just not interesting enough. Still gonna continue it though. I will watch the 2nd season soon. So far, 3 stars. Last anime I watched was Tasogare Out Focus. It's about 2 high school boys, Mao and Hisashi, who set rules to maintain boundaries while sharing a dorm room. But navigating friendship, sexuality, and privacy proves complicated as they learn some things can't be easily promised. It's a cringe fest. Ooh, I cringed so hard. Ever since I've watched and read The Untamed, I feel like these kinds of BLs they're just not it. It's boring, it's more of the same, it's the opposite of slow burn, it's quite rushed. I didn't buy the romance. The characters also feel pretty much dead to me. They have no depth, they have no layers. The anime seems to deal with more than one pairing, and honestly, the first pairing, the protagonist Mao and Hisashi, it's the worst. Like, it feels more like an animated drama CD, which is why it was so cringy. No, it was hard to watch. But another thing, which also was a bit disappointing, is that in the beginning they're sitting in front of camera and making these promises. For example, they have this signal to notify the other person they're jerking off, they need their privacy, whatever. And I thought there was a deeper past or a deeper meaning behind it, like they've caught each other jerking off before, but no. The second pairing is much funnier. It also felt less like a drama CD. It felt more like a normal anime BL. I also very much like the gyoza pillow because it's so freaking cute. Recommending Omegaverse to someone who's never read BL before? It's a choice, wouldn't be my choice. So far I've watched 7 episodes, the 2 storylines seem to be finished, so I wonder what else is going to come now. 1 star. Manga. I've read the Otherworld's books depend on the bean counter, Wet Sand, Helper 1 and 2, Oyasumi Punpun, Gozeniji Made Kimi ni Mono, or I'm Yours Until 2 AM, Kagurabachi, Boku no Hero Academia, and On or Off. First things first, the Otherworld's books depend on the bean counter. This is a tale of the humble accountant Kondo and his trials and woes as he counts in a new world. So basically he's a workaholic and he keeps being a workaholic in the new world. As you probably gleaned from the title, it's an isekai. And it's BL and it's funny. 3 stars. Then we have Wet Sand, which is about Ian, a former gangster who tries to leave his dangerous past behind, but his longtime friend and partner TJ, who he shared everything with, refused to let him go. It's also about gangster stuff, and I am usually not very much into gangster stuff, but it mainly focuses on Ian and his love triangle. He's stuck between 2 lovers basically. I'm invested enough. I enjoy reading it. This is the best panel, by the way. It's not finished yet, so I'm looking forward to the rest. 3 stars. Helper is about the leader of a biker gang, Jang Guangnam, who dies and finds himself with a ticket to hell. He sets out on a quest to change his fate. It's incredibly funny with a stylized art style. I love the color code because it's mainly black and white with only a few colors, and each color represents a different rank in the underworld. Aside from the color, it also has some theological undertones. It's very action-packed, a bit surreal, and very easy to read because they're mainly fighting. This is basically pure testosterone in the shape of a comic. And something else I noticed is that unlike some shonen anime, this comic is really just bros being bros. There are no blush and sparkles, no romantic undertones triggering my primal urge to ship the guys on screen. Not saying that it's impossible, just saying that it's not as tangible. The target audience are 100% teenage boys, and since I have the taste of a teenage boy, that's how they got me. 3 stars. And then we have Helper 2, which is about Guangnam's past in an orphanage run by a gangster training the kids to be killer machines. It's kind of the prequel to Helper, but while it's still funny, it's not as entertaining. It's less creative and less compelling. Very repetitive, very disappointing, kind of destroys the lightheartedness of the original story, and also very much filled with testosterone, but not in a good or fun way. It's quite annoying actually, and has more that feeling of toxic masculinity. What I very much liked about the original story is this whole concept of the afterlife. It was way more intriguing than just training kids to be killer machines. And I have to say, even to me, a person prone to profanity, there's a bit too much swearing in this comic. Honestly, save your time and skip it. 1 star. Oyasumi Punpun. Ho, buckle up my guys. Meet Punpun Bunyama. He's an average kid in an average town. He wants to win a Nobel Prize and save the world. He wants to go far away with his true love. He wants to find some porn. While reading this, I took some notes, and my notes grow increasingly unhinged. First of all, Punpun and his family are normal humans, but they are portrayed as caricature birds. Don't know why, that's just how it is. It's so obviously written by a man because the way that women behave is very much male fantasy-like. What I also didn't like was the boys deciding who gets the girl. Ew. Girls can decide for themselves. I also didn't like that women only want to get married. Ew. Then we have all the side characters who are like soulless NPCs. Some of them look a lot like Shingeki no Kyojin Titans, others look like dead fish. Here's a screenshot from Tokyo Vice. Seem familiar? Guess what? He's dead. This manga is basically about an allosexual teen who can't get laid, and I'm not interested in that. Literally all he does is complain about he can't put his Johnny in a VJJ. Is that how all allosexual people are? Seems a bit exhausting. People kept saying that this manga was so dark and sad, but I'd rather say it's disturbing and absurd. I mean, yes, there is tragic stuff happening on the side, but it's not that depressing. It is dramatic and traumatizing, but I don't like Punpun, so I don't care. The past of Muichiro from Kimetsu no Yaiba and the loss of his parents was so much sadder than the entirety of Poon Poon. Honestly, Poon Poon was just so fucking annoying. He's such a fucking incel. I mean, yes, he has trauma and stuff, but that's not an excuse to be such an asshole. Not only is he super annoying, he also makes me so fucking angry. He has very volatile emotions, and also the way he jumps to conclusions. He's friends with a girl, Sachi. I don't know if he has this crush on Sachi. They agreed to meet up to watch fireworks or something. He wants to surprise her and pick her up from work. There he sees her talking to another guy and just assumes it's her boyfriend that she kept as a secret, and then he hates her because she might have a boyfriend who's not him, even though a relationship was never on the table. Then she comes and apologizes even though she did nothing wrong, tells him that it's a misunderstanding and it's not her boyfriend, and then he's suddenly like, oh, loves her again. Like, ew, boy, no. He needs to get a grip. And I don't know if I'm missing something, and Poon Poon is not like the other boys, so he's allowed to think like that, but to me he's just like any other guy. In the end, it appears that Poon Poon and Sachi was bound to happen, but was it though? Do people have to sleep with each other to know that they are just friends? Props to the artist for inciting the emotions, but if that's why Poon Poon is so good, then no. I like to feel good and excited about the media I consume, not like this. It reminded me very much of Burning, which I also hate. I guess for other characters, Seki was my favorite, and I also feel like the author didn't realize that he created a queer character because Seki isn't straight. He may be fucking a girl, but he's in love with Shimizu. It's so obvious. Try and change my mind. But apart from that, he was also very relatable in general. Like, he seemed to be the only person who used his brain in this manga. The only good thing about this manga is the art. The art is insane. I really like the attention to detail. I also think it's very creative in general, especially the way Poon Poon evolves from a caricature bird to a triangle to something weird and dark with, was it 4 eyes? I don't remember. And you know what would have been dope? If each chapter ended with Oyasumi Poon Poon, which means good night, Poon Poon. I have so much to say about this manga that I'd have to make a separate video, but I don't want to have to read this again. So if you want my full opinion on this, let me know in the comments and I might consider it. But apart from that, the only word I have for this manga is repulsive. 0 stars. Next up is Gozen ni made kimi ni mono, or roughly translated, I'm yours until 2 AM. Michio has liked his close friend Kyoichi ever since their school days. Having never confessed his feelings, their platonic relationship continues as he turns 21. When Michio awakens one morning, he finds the world around him unfamiliar. I fell into another memory loss trap. I don't like that trope at all. It's not very rewarding to me. Actually, it's very depressing, but it does kind of have a happy ending. I bought it because I like the art style, even though I mixed up the author Okuda Waku with Chise Ogawa because they have a similar art style, but I like both. So there are no regrets. It's a light read, so 3 stars. Kaburabachi. Young Chihiro spends his days training under his famous swordsmith's father until one day tragedy strikes. From that day on, Chihiro and his blade now live only for revenge. I feel like this manga is an underdog in the shonen verse. Yes, it's a classic shonen manga, but I really like it. The story boils down to swords and magic, but what I like even more about this manga is the line art is so clean. And the backgrounds, if hand-drawn, are insanely good. While reading the manga, I'm savoring the art like a connoisseur. I honestly like it even better than Poon Poon, but that's subjective. 4 stars. Boku no Hero Academia. Again, I don't think I have to sum it up, but it's about Midoriya who doesn't have a superpower, then eats the hair of his favorite superhero and gets superpowers and starts visiting a superhero academy to become a professional hero, blah blah drama shonen stuff. Well, what can I say? I like shonen stuff. I like shonen manga in general. I love school settings, I love superheroes. I was drawn to it because it's a classic shonen. We have lots of action, cool characters, cool arcs, but I am also kind of glad that it's over because first the final arc came very sudden, but then it was a bit too dragging for me. On the other hand, I'm a bit sad because it had a lot of potential and I was looking forward to more arcs, but it was very obviously already the final arc. It was good when it ended, the way it ended, it's better this way. 3 stars. And lastly I have On or Off, which is about Young, who is building a startup with his college friends. He get a chance to present the proposal to SJ Corporation, one of the leading companies in the country. But in the meeting room he sees Kang Dae-young, the extremely handsome company big shot that's so very much his type, and Young's heart starts to race. It's another BL, and it kind of caught me off guard because it's mainly a comedy. It's like comedy and romance, and I enjoyed it a lot. I almost feel like it's illegal how much I enjoyed it. However, I don't know why it's called on or off. I mean, I haven't finished it yet. I've read 3 volumes, and I think there are 5 in general. Going into this, I thought it was called on or off because it was like a tech company, like they had something to do with IT, you know, have you turned it off and on again, this kind of stuff, or maybe it's related to their relationship, but I also don't really see that. So the title is a mystery to me, but apart from that, I had a lot of fun reading it. 4 stars. Then I also wanted to mention a few mangas that I've been reading ongoing, which is why I'm not going to rate them yet. And those are Sasaki Tomiyano, Servamp, 19 Days, Blue Stray Dogs, Therapy Game Re, Owari no Seraph, A Moonlit Spring River, and Sayazuri Tori wa Habasakanai, or Birds Don't Sing? Is that the translation? No. Twittering Birds Never Fly. Okay, last category, books. I've read Arha Volume 5, The Wrong Way to a Demon Sect Leader, Understanding Chinese Fantasy Genres, the Bungo Stray Dogs Light Novels Volumes 2, 3, and 4, and lastly, Chang Jingjiu, also known as Ballad of Sword and Wine. First, Arha 5. As the day of Nang Gongse and Song Chutong's wedding draws near, a scandalous rumor circulates among guests at Wufeng Sect. When the wedding festivities are interrupted by a mysterious man claiming to know even more explosive secrets, Moran and Chuaning are thrown together in the ensuing chaos. I first started to like it in volume 2 or 3, I think, and since then it's been quite steady. Like, I'm always looking forward to read more, and I'm also looking forward to the next volume, which I already have and is waiting for me to be read. So far, 3 stars. The Wrong Way to a Demon Sect Leader, which I've mentioned before. It's the novel to the drama The Birth of the Drama King. It's about the #1 swordsman Zhao Jiangui, who's the martial world's best hope for peace. All he has to do is seduce the demon sect leader. So that's the first difference. In the drama, he has to befriend In the drama, he has to befriend the demon sect leader, and in the novel, he has to seduce him. However, most of the chapters are really short. It feels like one chapter is just one scene. The plot and the romance were a bit too confusing despite the good translation that I read, and it felt a bit like the author doesn't usually write gay romance or just wrote it as a money grab because it lacked heart. The only thing I liked about this novel is that almost at the ending, the protagonist, I cannot pronounce his name, has a smaller character development when he manages to flirt with the Demon King without using the manual. I was so proud of him. Apart from that, it wasn't really good, so 2 stars. Understanding Chinese Fantasy Genres, which, as the name already implies, is explaining or trying to explain the fantasy genres in Chinese literature. It might be helpful to people who don't know much about Chinese fantasy. I can't really tell because I didn't learn anything new. I already knew most of the stuff, like 95%, and since none of this was new to me, I can't tell if it's explained well enough for a newbie to understand. So yeah, 2 stars. Now, Bungo Stray Dogs Volume 2. Before joining the armed detective agency, Osamu Dazai was the youngest ever executive with the Port Mafia, the most notorious underground crime syndicate in all of Yokohama. When one of her colleagues suddenly goes missing, Dazai and fellow Port Mafia member Sakunosuke Oda are tasked with conducting an investigation. I have to say, I didn't enjoy it very much. It was very descriptive. It barely had any emotions. It was like I was reading a non-fiction book. It also is the least interesting plotline for me, and it's written from different perspectives, but sometimes I wasn't sure who was talking, like whose perspective we're currently on, because they had very similar voices. 2 stars. Bungo Stray Dogs light novel volume 3 was already much better. 10 years before the events of the manga series, a fateful encounter brings a professional bodyguard named Yukichi Fukusawa and an arrogant boy genius named Ranpo Edogawa together. The result? The establishment of the Armed Detective Agency, an organization that takes on dangerous jobs even the police won't handle. The writing style in this novel has improved a lot. It has a better reading flow and was way more fun to read. Another difference is this time there's no ego perspective. The second novel was written from the first perspective, and I'm not a big fan of the first perspective in general. But not only that, the characters were also way more distinguishable. However, to me, Bungo Stray Dogs is mainly Dazai and Chuya, or especially Chuya. I love Chuya, which is why I always forget about the low-key incest. Ew. Nevertheless, 3 stars. Bungo Stray Dogs Light Novel Volume 4. The Armed Detectives Agency's latest case brings them to a strange island off the coast of Yokohama called Standard Island. But what awaits them turns out to be far more complicated than expected. Will this incident spell the end of Yokohama itself? Spoilers, of course it won't. First of all, I have to say the writing style is getting better with each novel, which is to be expected. But in Volume 4 we suddenly have a lot of physics and science talk, like, bitch, what? I had some trouble understanding this stuff, a bit too scientific. Which was also kind of interesting because that just goes to show that the author put a lot of thought into it, but please keep it simple. I still had fun reading it, so 3 stars. And last but not least, Ballad of Sword and Wine. Shen Sichuan is the 8th son of the traitorous prince of Jianxing, a man who doomed his cities and people to destruction at the hands of the foreign enemy. As the only surviving member of his reviled line, Shen Sichuan bears the hatred of the nation, and no one's hate burns hotter than that of Xiao Jie. Going into this, I lowered my expectations because I've been disappointed before, but ooh, it's so well written. There's no over-explanation or over-exposition. Of course, we have some exposition here and there because you need it to understand the story, but mainly it has an incredibly good reading flow. What I also like is that it jumps right into the story, which worked because I was instantly hooked and invested. I want to know what happens. Like, I finished the first volume and I'm still invested, which is a good sign. But unfortunately, I have to wait until the next novels are released because I was too late to read it online. I also have to say Xiao Jie is different from what I expected. I thought he'd be more serious, like Moshi from Yu, but instead he's the kind of guy who's too cool for school. It's kind of funny though. However, it's less fantasy and more political and imperial intricacies and some military stuff I don't understand. Still enjoyable to read. 4 stars. This was a wild ride. Not only do I look increasingly unhinged, I also completely forgot to film this outro. So let me know if you've seen or read any of the media and which out of these is your favorite. Feel free to leave your opinion or correct me if I said something wrong, but please keep it civilized and constructive. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any topics you'd like to hear me ramble about, leave a suggestion in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!